A season can shift before the first snap is even played. Today we start with Upton Stout, because his second year could become a real measuring stick for this defense. Then there is one decision still sitting out there on the market that could separate caution from real ambition in Santa Clara. After that, Romello Height steps into a role that leaves absolutely no room for hesitation. And to close it out, roster depth shows up as the key that could swing the NFC West. Subscribe right now because this one truly matters. The Upton Stout story feels different because this is not just about a young corner grinding through off-season videos on Instagram. This is about a defense that needed a spark last year and spent way too many Sundays waiting for somebody to go take the game. Stout played 593 snaps in 2025, more than any 49ers rookie. That is not some empty stat. That is trust, placed on the field, week after week, in one of the hardest jobs on defense, inside at nickel, where every mistake gets exposed fast, and a lot of the good reps barely get noticed. And still, look at what he gave them. 82 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, 5 passes defended, 1 forced fumble, and 1 sack. For a third-round rookie, that is real production. He had the second-best overall grade among San Francisco rookies from Pro Football Focus, behind only Jordan James, who graded well but barely played on offense. So when we talk about real impact, real volume, and real pressure, Stout was the rookie carrying the heaviest load. Now here is the part that should make every Niners fan feel something. San Francisco had only 6 interceptions in 2025. 6. For a franchise trying to walk into January with its chest out, that is just not enough. The defense can hit, it can run, it can intimidate, but if it does not take the ball away, it leaves too much life on the field. And Stout has already shown that ball production before. At Western Kentucky, he had 6 interceptions in 3 seasons, with 2 taken back for touchdowns. So the instinct is there. The question is whether year 2 turns those pass breakups into real takeaways. Workout videos do not guarantee anything, but they show intent. They show a player treating the offseason like an opportunity, not a vacation. And year 2 is where a lot of careers begin to speak louder. The rookie has already felt the speed. He has already been tested by the mental side of the NFL. He has already learned where this league punishes you. Now he has to punch back. If Upton Stout makes that jump, we are not just talking about a solid nickel corner. We are talking about a piece that can change drives, shorten the field for Brock Purdy, and bring back that dangerous feeling this 49ers defense is supposed to have. And that brings us to Joey Bosa, where the conversation stops being comfortable. Everybody knows the 49ers may not make another big swing this offseason. John Lynch has already cooled down the idea publicly, giving off the feeling that the price is too high. And nobody needs to pretend Joey comes without risk. He is 31, he has dealt with injuries, and his run in Buffalo was decent, not explosive. 15 games, 5 sacks. That is not the most terrifying version of Joey Bosa. But here is the question that keeps banging around. Since when can San Francisco treat pass rush like a luxury after finishing dead last in the NFL in sacks? This defense lived through a season where the lack of pressure took part of its soul. When the opposing quarterback has time, everything gets harder. The coverage suffers, the plan gets exposed, the energy fades. And for a team that wants to talk Super Bowl again without sounding empty, adding edge help cannot be treated like some extra bonus. The fit is way too obvious to ignore. Nick Bosa is there. The need is there. Bryce Huff retired. Romello Height could be an interesting answer, but he is still a rookie trying to prove his Texas Tech burst can translate to the NFL. Maybe it does. Maybe he becomes exactly the third down rusher this defense needs. But real contenders do not walk into a high-stakes season putting everything on maybe when there is a veteran option still sitting on the market. And yes, money matters. Nobody is asking Lynch to spend like there is no tomorrow. Joey Bosa should not be paid for the name he had 5 years ago. But if the price drops into a reasonable range, the 49ers have to be ready to move. Because a rotation with Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, Osa Odigizua inside, and Joey coming in on clear passing downs changes the whole mood of a defense. It does not have to be 30 snaps of hero ball. It can be the right snap on 3rd and 8 in December when the NFC West is getting nasty. That is the line between being careful and being afraid. The roster has already improved, but there is still an open door to put real bite back into this defensive front. Joey Bosa does not have to be the savior. He just has to be the piece that keeps this defense from coming up short when the game asks for one big play. Romello Height might be one of the most nerve-wracking stories on this roster because his role sounds small until you remember what happened last year. Bryce Huff was not a star in San Francisco, But he was a veteran with a clear job. Come in on third downs, attack the quarterback, bring speed off the edge, and keep the defense from depending on one path to pressure. But then the season flipped. Nick Bosa and Michael Williams got hurt. Huff was pushed into a bigger load. Opponents started treating him like the main edge threat. And the production faded. 4 sacks. Last in the league in sacks as a team. For anyone who knows this franchise, that almost feels insulting. Now Huff is retired, after that unexpected decision to leave the NFL and enter the lithium-ion battery space. Good for him. But for San Francisco, the question is still sitting there, heavy. Who is chasing the quarterback when the game hits that third down where the whole stadium holds its breath? Based on what Matt Barrows of The Athletic said, the answer right now points to Height. His role is basically Bryce Huff's role. Come in on third downs and obvious passing situations to rush the quarterback. Simple to say, brutal to do. Because being that guy in the NFL is not just about flying off the edge, it is about snap count, angle, protection, the tackle's hands, the quarterback's depth, and knowing when to close inside. You have to win fast because if you are late, the ball is gone and all anybody sees is a missed chance on the replay. Height came out of Texas Tech as a third-round pick, and he had 9 sacks in his final college season. That number gets your attention. If he somehow gave the Niners 9 sacks in 2026, fans would lose their minds, and they should. But for that to happen, the setup has to help him. Nick Bosa has to stay healthy. Michael Williams has to bring stability on the edge. Alfred Collins and Osa Odigizua have to push the pocket from inside. And Raheem Morris has to put Height in spots where he can attack instead of overthinking. That is the emotional core of this story. The kid does not have to save the defense by himself, but he can change its temperature. An average pass rush would already transform a lot for San Francisco. I am not even talking about a dominant front from start to finish. I am talking about getting back to bothering people, getting back to taking away air, getting back to making quarterbacks feel like every third down against the 49ers comes with a consequence. Height can be the detail that brings back that discomfort. And if he takes that role without blinking, this defense gains the weapon it tried to have with Huff, but never got to use the right way. And when the conversation gets to the NFC West, I think a lot of people are still looking at the 49ers the wrong way. The debate is not just whether San Francisco has enough stars, they do. The real debate, like Mo Moten brought up at Bleacher Report, is whether the depth is finally strong enough to survive the kind of season that broke this team from the inside last year. Because that is what hurt. It was not a lack of top-end talent. It was the roster falling apart piece by piece until huge games against Seattle turned into an uneven fight. The 49ers were one win against the Seahawks away from fighting for home field advantage in the playoffs and maybe changing the entire story of the conference. But when the depth got pushed to the limit, it did not respond like a champion needs to respond. And in the NFC West, that is brutal. There is no comfortable margin when you are trying to get past teams that have already proven they can play in January with everything on the line. Now the read feels different. San Francisco shows up third in a lot of division conversations, behind the current Super Bowl champion and the team that champion barely got past in the NFC Championship game. Fine, you can understand the outside respect. But inside the Niners fan base, the feeling is different. If this roster is healthy, and more importantly, if the second wave does not turn into a hole when it gets called on, this team has enough firepower to go toe-to-toe with the Rams and Seahawks. The least flashy part might end up being the most important. Losing Trent Williams exposed how badly the line needed better answers, and Austin Pleasant struggling on the road against Seattle made that clear. Ladarian Lowe and Enrique Cruz are not coming in to sell jerseys, but they bring experience, competition, and another layer of protection. The receiver room is deeper, the backfield got younger, the cornerback room added possible starters without losing key pieces. The linebacker room has more bodies. The edge and interior defensive line have more options too. That changes the tone of the season. It does not erase risk because in the NFL, risk lives on the very next snap. But it changes your ability to survive, and that is what real contenders do. They do not just have big names, they keep breathing when the week gets ugly. I want to hear from the fan base in the comments. Is depth really the biggest factor that can bring the NFC West back to San Francisco? Or do you still think this team needs one more impact piece? Because to me, if Kyle Shanahan has a tougher, more durable roster, this division starts looking at the Niners with a different kind of fear. In the end, it all comes back to the same demand. The 49ers cannot live on names, memories, and promises alone. Stout has to turn presence into takeaways. Lynch has to decide whether Joey Bosa is smart ambition or too expensive of a luxury. Romello Height has to prove third down speed can become real impact. And the roster depth has to do what it could not do when last season started breaking down. Keep the structure standing. That is the difference between being in the race and threatening to take the division. If you believe Santa Clara is building something real, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with us.